Hello my friends, and welcome back to another Baldur's Gate 3 character building guide. Hope you're all doing well. Today we're covering a character that does incredible damage, on par with some of the most complex and optimized characters out there, has great survivability, and above all is extremely simple, both to build and to play. In fact, I had a funny moment with this build because I went to recommend my video on this character to a commenter who asked for a video for their co-op partner who was newer to strategy games and wanted a powerful but simple build to play. So I went to recommend this character and then realized that I had not done a build guide for it. So we're going to fix that today because this is one of the most useful and powerful builds in the game, with incredible damage, huge numbers of attacks, great utility, and good options every turn of combat, but also very, very simple to pilot and build. So even if it's your first honor mode run or you're playing with co-op partners who play fewer strategy games, this character has an excellent place in every honor mode party. I'm talking, of course, about the Battle Master Archer. So let's get building. Before I begin, I do want to take a quick moment to say thank you so much to Jamerson McGradner for the $25 donation, and to Courtney, Thatman Dan, and Stephen Steezothorn for becoming channel members. Thank you so much, my friends. I really appreciate the support, and it really does mean a lot. Alright, let's shoot some arrows. I'm using Lae'zel here as the example character, because this is a fighter build, of course, and she is the fighter of the party. But if you're building this as a custom character, what race you pick mostly won't matter, so feel free to pick anything that you want to play just for flavor reasons. You already get all of your weapon and armor proficiencies from fighter, so you mostly don't need to pick your race based on those, but of course a couple will stand out as more optimal than others. Dwergar's out-of-combat invisibility that they get at level 5 is incredible for this character, letting you position your character perfectly before combat starts, so you can always get the maximum number of attacks off before enemies can react to you. Wood Elf or Half Wood Elf gives you bonus movement speed, very useful for an archer to stay out of reach of enemies. And this character basically can't die to physical damage because we get excellent armor class and hit points from fighter, so Gnome for advantage on the mental saving throws, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma, patches one of the only weaknesses that this character has, although even that we're still pretty good at already, or Halfling to reroll ones just makes us much more consistent. I will also mention that the most optimal character to build this with is Astarion, as with most physical damage builds, especially ones like this that make a ton of attacks per round, because his bonus hit chance from the happy buff in the early game, and his late game story event that lets him get extra damage on his weapon attacks, will make him do more damage and hit more accurately than any other character. But again, it mostly does not matter what you pick for this character. It's so powerful in and of itself that you can build it on anyone and have it be extremely effective. At first level, we're going to be starting with Fighter, and we get a couple decisions that we have to make with a level 1 fighter. The first of these is our fighting style, which for an archer character is a pretty easy one. We're going to be taking archery. Archery fighting style is the most powerful fighting style in the game, so that's one of the draws for playing an archer is you get to use this incredibly strong bonus from the archery fighting style. A +2 bonus to your attack rolls on weapons is way better than anything else you get from the other fighting styles because it just makes your character wildly more consistent. It also helps to overcome one of the penalties that we're going to be taking from a feat later on with the sharpshooter feat. And so not only does this overcome a downside of the character, it also boosts the character's damage output and consistency, especially in the early game when things are most difficult, dramatically. I can't say enough good things about how good this is. It looks like an unassuming bonus, but +2 to your hit chance is going to be extremely valuable throughout the entire game and will increase the damage of this character enormously. For our ability score selection, of course, we are an archer, which means that we use our dexterity rather than our strength for our main stat here, so we're going to be boosting that as much as possible. And because we're a dexterity-based build that doesn't really need any other stats, we're single attribute dependent, or SAD, which is a good thing. You want to be single attribute dependent. We can take the greediest possible attribute split. We're going to take 17 dexterity, 16 in constitution, and 15 in wisdom. This is the highest you can get 3 stats. Of course, you could put 12 strength, you could get rid of the odd numbers and put 12 strength in and then spec into this in the later game. But just for simplicity's sake, we're going for these odd numbers, and then we'll even those out as we level up. For our skill selection here, your skills mostly won't matter. This character will not be doing too much of your party face things or anything along those lines. But you should definitely take perception because you have decent wisdom, and we're going to increase our wisdom later, and any character that has perception proficiency should grab it. It's just a very useful skill as you make your way through the game. Survival can be useful to save you a few clicks, because it can help you find those treasure chests without having to manually dig around with the shovel. So that's what I usually take just out of laziness. Your second skill here mostly will not matter, because the only skill this character is rolling is going to be perception checks. The most optimal from a combat perspective is acrobatics, so you don't get shoved around, but you usually won't get shoved around anyways, so either way you can put the second skill wherever. That's it. Fighters are very simple, so at level 1, that's all the decisions we have to make. Let's go to level 2. At character level 2, we don't have to make any decisions, but we do get the single best class feature in the game, Action Surge. Action Surge lets you, once per short rest, just get an extra action. At this point in the game, that's just one extra bow shot, which is still really good, because you can use it on the first turn of combat to kill a key enemy before they can act, and importantly, Action Surge allows us to make all of our attacks, so as we get extra attack or improved extra attack, we're going to be making 2 and then 3 additional attacks with this Action Surge action. That's going to be a huge amount of additional damage output, and lets us in the opening round of combat right now make 2 attacks, later make 4 attacks, and then later still make 6 or 7 attacks, which is how many we're going to get at the end of the build. Giving our character a tremendous amount of upfront burst damage to kill enemies before they can act, keeping your party very safe. At character level 3, we get to take our subclass, and the subclass that we're taking is the Battle Master. Now, Battle Master maneuvers give us a bunch of really powerful and unique options in fights. Every turn will always have something interesting that we can do, but also you can just use them for extra damage, so they don't require a lot of input from you. If you want an even simpler character, then you can take the Champion. Champion gets only passive benefits, so Champion Fighter is even simpler to pilot than Battle Master, but Battle Master gives you a couple extra options, so if you're looking for a very simple build that has still a little more to do as you get more familiar with the game, this is great. It's also a little more powerful overall because of the extra damage that you get from the Battle Master maneuvers. There's 3 maneuvers that we get at this level, and we're going to take 3 in particular. The first of these is Precision Attack. This lets us spend a superiority die, which is a resource we get a few of per day, in order to add a hit chance bonus to our next attack. So if there is an enemy that we are going to have a hard time to hit, you can activate Precision Attack before attacking and be able to hit it much more easily. This is very useful in the early game, where hit chance is sometimes an issue. It combines well with our archery fighting style to mean that we almost never miss attacks, and by itself, the superiority die is a D8 at this level, or an 8-sided die, which averages 4.5. So by itself, it almost entirely overcomes the attack roll penalty of Sharpshooter, the feat that we're taking next level, and lets us hit our attacks very easily. The second that we're going to take is Disarming Attack. Disarming Attack can be used to knock the weapon out of an enemy's hand, and it also does extra damage when we activate Disarming Attack. So you can just use this for extra damage, but also it's very useful. There's some enemies that just can't fight without their weapons, so having Disarming Attack is very powerful. And the third one is going to be Menacing Attack. This also does extra damage, and enemies have to make a save or they become frightened. Frightened enemies can't move, which is obviously, as an archer, exactly what you want out of an enemy. A melee enemy who's far away from you and frightened so they can't move towards you will be completely helpless, basically stunning them for an entire round. So Menacing Attack is incredibly powerful for an archery-based Battle Master and lets you lock down dangerous enemies, preventing them from acting at all. You can use any or all of these, and you'll get a good sense of which of these maneuvers to use against which kind of enemies, but as a general rule, if an enemy is hard to hit, use Precision Attack. If an enemy is melee, use Menacing Attack, and if an enemy has a weapon, use Disarming Attack. Other than that, no decisions to make at level 3, so let's move right on to level 4. At character level 4, we're going to take our first feat, and the feat that we are going to take is Sharpshooter. Sharpshooter is an archery-based feat that gives us a -5 penalty to our attack roll, so it makes it harder for us to hit, but all of our attacks do an extra 10 damage. Now, at this point, we're making 2 attacks every round, so that's 20 extra damage a round. And between the archery fighting style and precision attack that we got last level, we should be hitting all of our attacks regardless. You can also make these easier to hit by attacking your enemies from high ground, by gaining advantage on the attack roll, by having allies increase your chance to hit through the Bless spell or similar spells, which we will also be able to do for ourselves in a couple levels. So this penalty is pretty easy to overcome, and the amount of damage it gives you is enormous. The 10 extra damage for the -5 penalty to attack rolls is an increase to your average damage, even if it makes you miss more often against almost every enemy in the game. As a general, but you can also turn off Sharpshooter if you need to in order to land a hit. As a general rule, if your chance to hit is 25% or less, then you should turn off Sharpshooter, or if enemies are at very low health and you only need a little bit of damage to kill them, turning off Sharpshooter is a good plan. This feat just increases our damage output enormously, so is the one that I'm going to recommend taking. If you're playing with a co-op partner who's very, very new, and just wants to only ever push one button, then you don't have to take Sharpshooter at this level. You can take an ability improvement to boost their dexterity to 18 and their wisdom to 16. So if you're like helping someone build this character and they're very new to the game, then do this. But Sharpshooter is definitely the more powerful choice, so for this build, that's what I'm going to recommend. At character level 5, we don't have to make any choices to build the character, but we do get an awesome class feature, and that feature is extra attack. This basically doubles the amount of damage we do. Whenever we attack twice. This works with Action Surge to attack 4 times in the first turn of combat, which also works with Sharpshooter for 40 damage, plus our normal weapon damage and everything in the early turns of combat, to make our damage output enormous. Extra attack, obviously doubling our damage. There's not much to say about it. It's incredibly strong because doing twice as much damage as we did before is obviously great. This is why level 5 is one of the most important break points for a lot of characters, because it increases your damage output enormously. So getting to level 5 makes your party as a whole wildly stronger in general, and extra attack is a big reason why, because this feature is so good. At level 6, we get a second feat. Normally, you don't get another feat until level 8, but because we are a fighter, we get our second feat at level 6, so fighters get a bonus feat at 6th level, and the feat that we're going to take is an ability score improvement. We're going to use this to put 1 point in Dex and 1 point in Wisdom to get even numbers here. Even numbers are important because you only get bonuses from even numbers, so this will raise our hit chance and damage with our bows to +4, raise our Wisdom saving throw to +3, which is nice because this character now has pretty decent Wisdom saves, which are the most important saving throws in the game, and we still have our good hit point gain that we're getting from Fighter, so this makes our stats significantly better. Fixing these odd numbers is really good, and of course that's what we want to do as early as possible, though it is more important to get Sharpshooter. If you took the attribute points at level 4, you can take Sharpshooter at level 6 now, and that will not have delayed your damage that much. At this point, it's easier to hit all your shots, because we increased our dexterity as well, so Sharpshooter has less of a penalty. At character level 7, we're going to multi-class. So we could, of course, just take Fighter all the way through, and that would be an extremely powerful character as well. But there's a level in another class we can take that makes this character significantly stronger. And now we've got a lot of the best things from Fighter. At least at this point, we're going to keep going in Fighter after this multi-class. But this 1-level dip is going to make the character significantly better. We're going to add 1 level of Cleric, and the reason for this is that we can take the Cleric domain War Domain. War Domain Cleric gets the ability to make an extra attack as a bonus action 3 times per day. You get 3 War Priest charges here per day. And so now, in the opening round of combat, if we need an extra attack to bring down a powerful enemy, we have 4 attacks at base, 2 from our normal attack, 2 from our Action Surge, and then another 1 from War Priest. So we can make 5 attacks in the opening round of combat. You can do this 3 times per day, which conveniently is the same as the number of Action Surges that you get during the day. So you are going to be able to do at least 3 encounters before long resting, and usually you can do more. at maximum effectiveness, and kill the most important enemy in every combat before the combat even begins. War Domain Cleric also gives us a bunch of other great features for this character. Firstly, we get a few cantrips, and we are going to take Guidance, because Guidance is going to just give our whole party a massive boost to their effectiveness. The 1d4 bonus to your skill checks makes you much better at opening locks, passing dialogue skills. Guidance is probably the single best spell in the game. Secondly, we're going to take Resistance. This is useful in a couple dialogues where you have to make a saving throw during dialogue, though typically you're not going to cast this during combat. And Blade Ward. Blade Ward means you take only half damage from physical damage, and if this character gets isolated and surrounded by enemies, you're still a fighter. You have a lot of hit points, you have good armor class, so even though you're a ranged character, you can take a bit of a beating. Blade Ward lets you take twice as much damage. So if you're waiting for allies to come rescue you, or you get surrounded by a bunch of enemies, Blade Ward can be pretty useful to keep you alive. We also get some skills, so you can learn a couple more skills here from taking levels in Cleric. That's not that important overall, and you get some prepared spells that you can cast. There's a couple here that are really good for us. The most important of these is Bless. Bless gives us a 1d4 bonus to all of our attack rolls, and we can bless ourselves. So that just increases our hit chance with all of our weapon attacks enormously. You can just leave this running, you can cast it before combat, and so this is what we're going to be spending most of our spell slots on, is just improving the power level of our character by blessing ourselves. We also get Healing Word, which is a great emergency option. This only costs a bonus action, and if an ally has gotten knocked unconscious, this lets your fighter get them back up again, which is pretty useful utility to have. And Sanctuary, which is also a bonus action, and can keep an ally alive if things start to get hairy, or if the fight really starts to turn against you. You can Sanctuary yourself and just run away. Never underestimate the power of just running away from combat. For our last spell, we'll take, let's say, Create or Destroy Water, because this sometimes has quite a bit of utility, just being able to douse flames or get enemies wet to double lightning damage against them. But mostly we're here for Bless, Healing Word, and Sanctuary, and the War Domain class features to vastly increase our upfront burst damage. At level 8, we're going to go back into Fighter. Now that we've gotten our one level of Cleric, we can just take Fighter the rest of the way, so we're pretty happy to just continue to get all of the great features that Fighter gets as we level up. At level 7 in Fighter, we level up our superiority die, so we go from doing a d8 of extra damage when we activate a maneuver to a d10 of extra damage, and adding a d10 to hit with precision attack. That's very useful, just a pretty big increase to our hit chance, and a very small but meaningful increase to our damage. And we also get 2 more maneuvers. At this point, we have most of the maneuvers that we really want, but there's a couple more that are very good for us. Trip Attack can knock enemies prone, and you can shoot an enemy at range and knock them prone. They have to spend half their movement getting back up. It doesn't lock them in place like Menacing Attack does, but it still slows them down a lot, which is very useful against enemies that are immune to fear, for example. And also, if you have a way to keep an enemy on the ground, then it just prevents them from taking their turn. Tripping an enemy also breaks concentration on spells, so against enemy spellcasters, tripping them can instantly stop them from concentrating on whatever dangerous spell they're using. The second that we're going to take is Pushing Attack, which shoves an enemy back 15 feet. That can shove enemies off of cliffs into hazardous locations that your allies have created. Gives you a lot of extra fun things you can do by pushing enemies around and bumping them into places that they don't want to be in. Typically, you're still going to be using mostly Disarming and Menacing Attack, but these also give you a bunch of great options. At level 9, we're taking our 8th level of Fighter, and we get another feat. The feat that we're going to take here is just another ability score improvement to bring our dexterity to the maximum, increasing our damage output with bows, and our hit chance with bows to the maximum possible of the +5 bonus. If you are really struggling with initiative, Alert is still always a good choice on honor mode. You can stay at 18 dexterity and take Alert, but this character shouldn't be struggling with initiative because we're a dex-based character, so generally you can just go to 20 dexterity for the maximum possible damage. At character level 10, we're taking our 9th level of Fighter, which gets us Indomitable. Indomitable is an amazing class feature that makes us extremely resilient to some of the things that are most dangerous for us. This character is very, very hard to kill with physical damage. We have a lot of hit points, we have very high armor class, and we're an archer, which means we're usually far away from the most dangerous enemies. So enemies who are actually attacking us are typically not a big threat to this character. The thing that is a threat is failing a saving throw and being just shut out. Even something as simple as, our own menacing attack that frightens us is pretty dangerous, because if this character can't move, it can't get away from melee enemies. And there's much worse things that can happen to you as well. If you fail against hold person and are paralyzed, you can lose fights immediately with bad saving throws. Indomitable gives us a second chance, and so importantly also works with advantage on saving throws. So if you have advantage from another source, Indomitable works as double advantage. So you can get really good saving throws if you have even small bonuses and advantage. We also have 16 wisdom, which gives us a +3. 16 wisdom, a +3 to our wisdom check with 2 rolls means we're going to pass a lot of wisdom saves against even pretty high save DC spells, so it makes fighters very resilient to mental saving throws, which is great because that's one of the only things that can possibly hurt a fighter. At character level 11, we're going to take our 10th level of fighter and improve our superiority dice. Oh, I actually misspoke earlier, my apologies. I said that we got the improved die size at level 7. We actually get it at level 10. At level 7, we got an extra superiority die so we can use it more frequently. It's level 10 where we get the extra damage and accuracy on our combat superiority. So my apologies for that mistake, but hopefully that wasn't too confusing. For our maneuvers here, we get 2 more maneuvers. At this point, you can really just go through and take anything that you think might look fun. We've got all of the really strong maneuvers at this point, so goading attack can be pretty useful because it can force enemies to attack you or cause enemies to prefer to attack you, and then you just run away as an archer and they will not be able to hit your allies, so goading attack is moderately useful as well. But most of these are not going to be particularly useful compared to the ones we already have, so you can just pick whatever you think might be fun to play with occasionally. And finally, at fighter level 11, character level 12, we get the reason that we've stayed in fighter for this long, and one of the things that makes this character just unbelievably strong: improved extra attack. Improved extra attack gives us a 3rd attack every time we attack. Fighters are the only character that gets this, although druids get it in their wild shape form, and so getting a 3rd attack is an incredibly powerful bonus that makes 11 levels of fighter one of the best things that we can possibly do. This works with our action surge, so we're going to be getting 3 attacks with our normal attack, 3 attacks with our action surge, and then a 7th attack with our War Domain Cleric. If we're hasted, we get an 8th attack on Honor Mode, or on Tactician difficulty and lower, we get 3 more full attacks with our hasted action for 10 attacks in the opening round of combat. So improved extra attack just makes us do unbelievable upfront burst damage, because remember, all of these attacks do a truckload of damage individually as well, because we have sharpshooter, so they're all adding 10 extra damage. They're adding 5 from our dexterity, they're adding the damage of the bow, they're adding any damage that we have from other items and buffs from our party members. So each of these attacks is probably averaging 30 damage. If we're doing 8 to 10 attacks in the opening round of combat, that kills almost any enemy in the game in the first round of combat, and that's without even some of the higher level damage bonuses that you can get. So this character does a truly ridiculous amount of upfront burst damage, has incredible sustained damage throughout the fight, and improved extra attack is the feature that makes that all sing. One thing that you could do, by the way, for a slight optimization is at level 11, when you hit character level 11, you can respec to just be a level 11 fighter, and then take the cleric level again at level 12. That gets you improved extra attack a level earlier, so it's a slight increase to your damage while you're level 11. Not necessary, but it is a small optimization that you can do. Alright, that is the Battlemaster Archer, but of course we want to talk about this character's gear, because that's part of what makes the character so powerful, so let's do that. For items for this character, we're really all about optimizing one thing, and that's adding more damage. This character just wants the most possible damage that you can get. There's a couple different ways to do this. The first, of course, is our weapon. We're going to use a two-handed longbow, and in the end game, the bow that I recommend is the Deadshot. The Deadshot critically hits more often, and also hits with its attacks more frequently, so it's going to do a ton of damage, let us land our attacks very, very easily. Our attacks will frequently be critical hits, so we do a bunch of damage. Before that, the most powerful bow that you can use is the Titan String bow. The Titan String bow adds your strength modifier to damage as well. Now, the strength modifier to damage is not that big a deal for this character. You might think wouldn't be that big a deal for this character because we only have 8 strength, but we can use an elixir of Hill Giant strength, and we can drink one of these every day. It's possible to stockpile these in the early game to get 21 strength. That means the Titan String bow adds plus 5 damage from our strength in addition to all of the other damage that we're doing. The Titan String bow is a huge amount of damage. Once you get the Deadshot, using that plus a Bloodlust elixir for additional attacks is better in my opinion. But either of these bow setups is going to be incredible throughout the entire game. Other than that, we want other items that increase our damage output. For example, the flawed Helldusk gloves or other gloves that add extra damage per attack are exactly what we're looking for. The Callous Glow ring that adds extra damage to whenever we hit an enemy is extremely powerful for just extra damage on every single shot. Remember how many attacks we're making per round, so any extra damage that we add is always going to be great. The Strange Conduit ring, similarly, it adds extra damage while we're concentrating on a spell. This character will almost always be concentrating on Bless for itself because you just want that hit chance bonus, so the Strange Conduit ring will always be active for an extra d4 of damage. Another great option for a concentration spell and also a damage increase is the Grim Skull Helmet, which gives you Hunter's Mark, letting you add a d6 of extra damage on every attack to a specific enemy. You can concentrate on this all day and swap it from enemy to enemy for even more damage. Another set of items that helps us do even more damage is our melee weapons. Even though this is an archer, we can still benefit from melee weapons if they have a passive bonus. For example, the Knife of the Undermountain King reduces the number you need to roll a critical hit while attacking. This doesn't require you to attack with the Knife of the Undermountain King, so when we have this equipped, it's going to make our archery attacks critically hit more often. We can also use shields, so we can increase our armor class, and even if we have our bow equipped, so even if we're actually actively using our bow, we still benefit from the armor class increase from the shield. A shield like the Sentinel Shield that gives us bonus initiative ensures that this character goes first in combat. We want for our armor, one of the medium armors that has that allows us to use our full dexterity modifier. The Armor of Agility combined with a shield gives us 24 armor class, which is a very solid armor class for this character. With any other armor class items, we can even spec into a more defensive version and be even harder to hit. So this character gets to be very, very hard to hit. A couple other specific combos that are really good for this character. The Drakethroat Glaive. This is another melee weapon we can benefit from. So this lets you cast Draconic Elemental Weapon to enchant a weapon all day with extra damage, a +1 to hit, and a +1 damage, and extra damage of an element type of our choice. That can be used on our bow in order to have it do extra damage. I recommend having it do extra cold damage, because that cold damage can then be doubled if the enemy is wet. And it gives us a really cool option with the Snowburst Ring. If all of our attacks do cold damage, then the Snowburst Ring is going to leave ice under every enemy we shoot. That's going to cause them to fall over pretty frequently, which will just cause enemies to not be able to get to us. If they're walking on ice, they have a good chance to fall over, and so the Snowburst Ring adds a ton of crowd control to this character, in addition to the incredible amount of damage we're doing if we're using this combination. If you're doing that, I also recommend the Disintegrating Nightwalkers, so you can't accidentally fall over on your own ice. And also having Misty Step is very useful to every character, so getting a once per short rest cast of Misty Step just gives us an option to get out of danger. This character is very good at running away if your run starts to go badly, or if the fight starts to go badly for you, and Misty Step makes it even better at doing that. But basically what you're looking for weapons and items for this character is just anything that adds damage to your weapon attacks is incredibly good. Anything that adds critical hit chance is incredibly good. And then anything that adds initiative or armor class is also very useful to make sure that you can go first and make sure that you don't die even if things start to go wrong. Very, very simple character to build, very simple to gear. Doesn't, other than needing a bow, you can equip this character in mostly gear that the rest of your party doesn't need because your specific gear requirements are pretty low, but anything that will increase your damage output will be incredible for this character. Alright my friends, I hope that you've enjoyed this look at the Battle Master Archer. I think this is one of the simplest and strongest honor mode builds out there. Will be very, very useful for if it's your first attempt at honor mode, if you're trying to get a friend who's a little less familiar with the genre into the game, or if you just want a character that just blasts for tons of damage while still having cool options for things to do every turn of combat, then this build will definitely work for you. As always, of course, if you've enjoyed the video, feel free to leave a comment and hit like. Helps me out a ton with the algorithm, so I appreciate you taking the time to do that. And you can subscribe to my channel for more Baldur's Gate 3 build guides and other strategy game analysis. Cheers, my friends, and I will catch you next time.